The curtains are up on CS2's first major, and the games have begun at PGO Copenhagen 2024. Today was the first day of play, and we're going to be going over all of the results, the biggest winners and losers of day one, and the best plays along the way. My name is LionHeartZ, welcome back to the channel, and during the major this week, you can expect to see daily updates from me on everything that's going on. So make sure you subscribe to keep up with the action. Make sure you leave a like and comment as well. And also consider becoming a channel member. For $5 a month, you can support me directly and gain access to exclusive logos and emotes, as well as a shout out at the end of every video. Also follow me on Twitch, linked in the description down below. Without any further ado, let's get right into the results. Alright, getting things rolling with our first match of the day, we had Cloud9 versus Ecstatic over on Ancient in a best of 1. Cloud9 would leap up to a dominant early start, going up 6-0. But showing some of that inconsistent form that they've been known of lately, things would rebound, allowing Ecstatic right back into the game, eventually pulling it all the way to an 8-10 lead in their favor, at which point Hobbit, Cloud9, they would lock in, they would clutch it up, and they would close out the game 13-10, going up 1-0 in the series, while Ecstatic followed to 0-1. Over on the B stream, Eternal Fire would be starting up their major run against the Mongolz over on Nuke, and frankly, this was a tame affair. Eternal Fire were in control of this game from beginning to end, the Mongolz were never really in it, and one of the highlights has to be Woxic with a dominant 20 frag performance, looking insane on the CT side with his op to open up the tournament. If you remember my Pick'ems video recently, I'm pretty out on Eternal Fire because I had serious doubts about Woxic and Zontera's ability to bring it on the major stage because they had struggled in the past. But at least for this opener, they showed that they're bringing some great form right now. As for the Mongolz, like I said, they were never really in this game. They couldn't establish any economy on either side, and frankly, they gotta step it up individually. Blitz was the only performer for them, and that can't be the case going forward. Moving on, we had Apeks versus Pain Gaming on Vertigo, and frankly, Pain Gaming came into this looking like one of the weakest teams in the field, but they showed up in a big way on map 1, taking a dominant victory over Apeks, 13-8. And really the story here was Bigazera just fragging out of his mind, taking dominant map control, and shutting Apeks out of a lot of rounds. Conversely, Sticko looked quite good early on, but Apeks as a team really struggled. Jacob and Nock really weren't up to par, and that definitely cost them here. Jumping over to another Nuke game, we have Heroic versus Lynn Vision. Lynn Vision, of course, one of the other weaker teams in the field against Heroic, who are looking like one of the early favorites to make it out of this stage. And frankly, the 13-5 scoreline is what we would have expected. Heroic were in control this entire game. Lynn Vision felt like they just weren't on the same level as Heroic in this game, and the scoreline shows it. Jumping over to Anubis, we have by far the best game of the opening round of the major, Ence versus Imperial. Out of all the games so far, this is the one you should go back and watch if you didn't catch it live. This was an epic, triple overtime banger, which saw both in-game leaders, Glaive and Vinny, just going back and forth in their strat books, digging deep on T-side to really expose just how T-side Anubis can play. Both teams were not comfortable on the CT side, not able to hold the B side whatsoever, and really it just came down to individual performances. A play that has to be highlighted despite them losing was Kylar's incredible ace clutch in double overtime that put Ence on their 4th match point of the series. Unfortunately, Ence just weren't able to close it out. This was a very close game, it could have gone either way, and frankly, again, going back to my pick'ems, I was not very high on Imperial, and they showed incredible form in this first game and a lot of guts to grind it out against a great Ence roster. I think both of these teams are set to do really good work in this major, and I expect both of them to do well going forward. From banger to blowout, we move on to Saw versus Koi. Koi looking like the weakest team in this major thus far, going up against Saw, who are coming into this format with an amazing amount of momentum, and frankly, this game was lost on the veto. Saw have been incredible on Nuke, they're currently on a streak of wins on it, and Koi just got absolutely banged out. A 13-4 loss, they were never in this game at any point, Saw just ran them over. Shout out to Story, who put up a 193 rating on the map, with a plus 14 plus or minus and 21 kills on the map. What a great performance. Moving into our last two games of the opening round, we have GamerLegion stepping in to fill the sudden gap made by 9 Pandas, playing against Amkal on Overpass. And this was another one of those games that I think Amkal lost in the veto. GamerLegion even said after the match that they have not lost on Overpass in quite some time. They feel it's their best map of the pool, and Amkal just gave it to him when Ancient was available. And it showed. This was a 13-8 game, but it was not a very close 13-8 game. As soon as we got to the T side, the calling from Snacks was immaculate. He showed some of that classic Virtus Pro form where they would just run down the clock, wait till the very last moment, then expose the weaknesses in your CT side. We also got some great dominant fragging from Volt that really made the difference. And to round out the 0-0 games, we had Furia versus Legacy, the Battle of Brazil, Cold Zero versus Fallen, and this was also another banger of a game that you should go back and watch. Unfortunately, Legacy was out here to ruin everybody's pick'ems, mine included, because Cold Zero rolled back the clock, turned back the years, was in so many clutches, winning so many rounds for Legacy. This game went to overtime. Legacy was able to pull it out because, frankly, Furia fell apart when it mattered most. They lost key rounds, had too many points, and left too many doors open for Legacy, who stepped right through in, frankly, dominant fashion. And with those games out of the way, we move on to our second set of best of ones for the day, where we focus on the first 1-0 matchup between Eternal Fire and Pain Gaming. We found ourselves on Anubis, and frankly, this game went how I would have expected most of Pain Gaming's games to go so far this tournament. They got absolutely wiped. This was 13-2, no contest. Pain never showed up for any moment of this match at all. Woxic, Zantares, Eternal Fire, they showed up, stood on business, and got it done. They move on 2-0, looking to 3-0 possibly into the elimination stage. Moving on to our first 0-1 matchup with Ecstatic versus the Mongolz, and this game, frankly, was kind of boring. It really wasn't very eventful. It was a 13-10 slog on Nuke, but it really felt like these teams were just trading blows back and forth. No team felt decisively better than the other, and it came down to just very small interactions that led to Ecstatic squeaking out the win. Thus far, the Mongolz are vastly underperforming expectations. The fragging's been underwhelming, the strats haven't been that good, and it shows in the results. They fall 0-2. Meanwhile, Ecstatic, they get up, they get back one, they're now 1-1 moving on. Queenix looked great, Salazar looked great. They feel very match to match right now. I think their opponents are more important than necessarily what they're bringing to the table. If they get the weaker side of the field, I could see them getting through. If they have to face better opponents as the brackets fill out, I think they're going out. Back to our next 1-0 matchup, we had Heroic versus Imperial on Mirage, and this game looked very much to be Heroic's to lose. Very early on, they established great tempo on the CT side, and Imperial frankly couldn't get anything going. But Heroic really started to slip. They let way too many rounds go against Imperial for my liking, as this should have been a comfortable win all day. Instead, it goes into overtime. Heroic very nearly lose the map, have to force overtime down 2 rounds, but they do manage to pull it out in the first overtime, winning 16-14. This game really felt like Nerds and Shush were able to get to their spots consistently and punish Imperial for their mistakes. However, once Imperial started winning, it came off the backs of a nice 30-bomb performance from Decenti, and later on we saw great clutch performances from both Phelps and Henny, but at the end of the day, it was just mistakes on Imperial that let them down. Missed shots by Henny in the clutch, mistakes on positioning. It just allowed Heroic to close the door when they had firmly opened it. Next up in the 0-1 bracket, we had Amkal versus Apeks, and frankly, this might have been the most boring game of the day, I'm not gonna lie. It may be a 16-13 overtime on Overpass, but don't let that deceive you. This was some of the sloppiest Counter-Strike we saw played all day. Both of these teams gave up rounds to horrible mistakes all game long, but it really came down to the fact that Apeks are simply a better overall roster than Amkal, and that's why they were able to get this win. Shout out to Icy though, who had a nice 30 bomb including a great ace. This next game had me sweating in my chair the entire time. It was Cloud9 versus Legacy. Cloud9 should have won this game way easier than they did. Oh my god, did they allow Cold Zero to run rampant on the CT side, and I thought for a minute that my pick'ems were about to go so goddamn bad that not only would Legacy not be one of my 0-3 teams, they would cuck one of my 3-0 team picks in Cloud9. But thankfully, Cloud9, they got to the CT side of Overpass, they locked in and just ran off a string of 9 straight rounds and closed the game out and moved on to the 2-0 bracket. And thankfully, Legacy didn't get another win when I believe they shouldn't have. That's all I'm going to say. Cold Zero played amazing, I can't deny that, but this team is just not well constructed. Fight me. And again, speaking of games that shouldn't have been as terrifying as they were for me, we have Ence versus Koi. If you told me going into this day that Koi would take Ence into overtime and nearly beat them, I would have laughed at you. Koi were great. They played great on Nuke. I will not deny that, but Ence should have been one of the strongest teams in the field, and today they seemed like they were just not quite all the way there. They lost in overtime to Imperial in the first game, and they had to go into overtime against Koi. They had to run off a string of 5 straight rounds down 7-12 to force overtime in the first place, but once they got there, they won in overtime. They won like 10 rounds straight to win the game. Fair enough, but this should have been like a 13-5 or a 13-6 game at best, and Ence just left way too much open. And now for what is actually probably the second best game of the day, we have GamerLegion versus Saw on Vertigo. If you missed this game live, go back and watch it. This was an absolute banger. Even though Saw won 13-9, these rounds were very close, and GamerLegion gave them a hell of an attempt at every single corner. This had banger round after banger round and 10 situation after 10 situation, but Saw rose to the occasion nearly every time they were called for, especially on the CT side. Their rotates, their pinches on post plants were immaculate. Story and Eridas are just two young talents that look so good, and this team is just playing so well right now. They are the standout of the tournament thus far for me, and you should be catching every Saw match you can. They're that good. And lastly, we got Furia versus Lynn Vision. And man, Furia is on pack watch. They were by far the most disappointing team to open up this tournament, even worse than Ence in my opinion, and them going down to 0-2 was unexpected but deserved. They played awful. They let Lynn just walk through them and win this game soundly on Nuke. It felt like Furia were barely in it. Serato could not carry the corpse of Fallen across the line. This roster needs to blow it up. And I will stand on that. Fight me in the comments. And with that, those are your results of the first day of the Major. Let's go and show the schedule for tomorrow's set of shenanigans. On the B stream, we're opening up with Pain Gaming versus Ence, Ecstatic versus Lynn Vision, and our first set of BO3s for the Major will be the Mongolz versus Amkal and Movie Star Koi versus Furia to see what teams will be eliminated first from the PGO Major at Copenhagen. Going over these matches quickly, I would expect Ence to beat Pain Gaming, Ecstatic to beat Lynn Vision, the Mongolz to beat Amkal, and Furia, if they are not the most decrepit team to ever exist, should beat Movie Star Koi. And on the A stream, our setup looks something like this. We will have Imperial versus Apeks, GamerLegion versus Legacy, Heroic versus Eternal Fire, and Cloud9 versus Saw. So once again here, going down the list, I would expect Imperial on their current form to beat Apeks. Apeks have underperformed thus far, and Imperial's playing very good. GamerLegion versus Legacy, I would take GamerLegion in this, though this could be a close game. If Cold Zero rolls back the clock, he can win this, I have no doubt about that. But GamerLegion seemed like the more sound roster to me. And then, for our BO3s to determine the 3-0 winners, the first people to advance to the elimination stage in the Major, we have Heroic versus Eternal Fire. I'm going to take Heroic here. I think Eternal Fire are going to be much more volatile in the best of 3 environment, and Heroic have the more sound roster. And then in the Cloud9 versus Saw game, this is banger alert potential. Cloud9 and Saw should be fireworks all around. And honestly, if Cloud9 play to the level they should play to, they should win. But Saw have been the upset team of the tournament. I would not be surprised if they eke out a win and advance 3-0 to be the first team to qualify against Cloud9. They absolutely could do it. Looking at my pick'ems, if Saw beats Cloud9, well, at least I got one of the two correct. And hopefully Koi gets eliminated so I can pick up something there. But man, today was a great set of games. They were all fun and interesting, even though my pick'ems got destroyed real quick. I have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow, but I'll be here covering it. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe for more content coming your way. The Major roundups, I'll be doing them all week long. Special shout out to my channel members, Furley707, Justin, and Jesse, my brothers. Thank you guys so much. Remember, for $5 a month, you can become a supporter. Consider doing it if you want to see me succeed. Other than that, I've been watching Counter-Strike for 8 hours, 10, 12 hours, I have no idea. I'm ready to go to bed. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.